All right, welcome to our What Do I Do series. Today we are going to answer the question, I have faith, but nothing happens. So what do I do about that? Today I want to talk about this word faith and what biblical faith actually is. I'm going to put a link at the bottom to a longer lesson that we did if you want to have more information on this. We did a lesson in our Galatians series. It will be Galatians lesson 6. So if you want the full lesson, but this is just a portion of what we talked about there. But I think that this word faith, we have a serious problem in the churches today because of the misuse of the word. We hear things like, well, if you just have enough faith, then God will heal you. If you just have enough faith, God's going to get you that job. If you just have enough faith, then that check will show up in your mailbox. And when you hear that, it sounds like your faith is dependent on what you can produce. The more faith you produce, then God kind of has to do what you're praying for. But if it doesn't happen, then it's kind of your fault. This is what's going on out there, and this is the things that we're hearing. The problem is that if that's how your faith is, then the focal point of your faith is you, not on God. But biblical faith is different. Biblical faith is your focal point is God. Because when it comes to faith, your faith has to be attached to something. And as followers of Jesus, our faith is in God. Our faith is in His promises. He's given us His word. He's told us everything that we can cling to and hang on to from there. In the longer version, I tell a funny story. Well, it's only funny because it actually didn't happen. When our kids were younger, thank the Lord, they somehow got up on the roof with there was 3 of them, the 3 younger boys. They put their youngest brother in a crate and they put a sheet around him, and they were going to push him off the roof thinking that the sheet would make him fly. Now, like I say, thankfully, God brought them to their senses before they actually did it. But their thought process was how we think a lot today, like, well, I have faith. I have faith and believe that this sheet will make my brothers fly. The object of their faith was the sheet. The faith is in a sheet. Like, I'm sorry, they were placing their faith and trust in that. And we know that that's not a very good place to put our faith in. But the Bible makes it clear that as a Christian, there has to be an object to our faith. We see what this looks like in Matthew 8:5. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed and is terrible suffering. Jesus said, I will go and heal him. The centurion believed Jesus. The centurion didn't just conjure up enough faith to believe I'm just going to believe that this will happen. He didn't do that. He believed in a promise that came directly from Jesus. Verse 8, the centurion said, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. Like, he really believed in the word that Jesus said. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and this one, come, and he comes. I say to the servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was astonished and said to those following him, I tell you the truth, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. See, it's amazing that Jesus is astonished by this. I don't think Jesus is astonished by much, but he is at this centurion's faith. Because the faith of the centurion was directly to Jesus. It wasn't anything else. It was trusting fully that Jesus would do what he said he would do. Verse 13, then Jesus said to the centurion, go, it will be done just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that very hour. Now, the reason why the centurion believed it would was because he had his faith in Jesus and what Jesus had promised. Here's what we need to know. Our faith has to be anchored to what God has said or promised. But see, the problem nowadays is we just think that faith means I just believe and what I believe for will happen. If I just have faith that the check's going to show up in the mail, then it will. If I have faith that my kids can fly off the roof and not die, then well, of course I'm going to have faith to believe that. But the problem is that when those things don't happen and my child falls off the roof and is deathly hurt, or the check doesn't show up in the mail, then you know what happens? We get mad at God. And it shatters our faith because we had our faith in the wrong thing. So let's take that into our life, because we all have had faith that things would work out a certain way and then they don't. And somehow we blame God as if it's his fault that he didn't answer our prayer. And we need to rethink that. Our faith has to be attached to God and his will. Our faith has to be attached to what God has already said to us or promised. Our faith can't be based on, how things turn out the way I want them to turn out. Because we know a lot of times God does things completely different than we ever thought that we wanted it anyway. For instance, we had a friend who got sick with COVID, very, very sick in the hospital. And we prayed. We prayed for God to heal him. And we had tons of faith. Like, we just knew God could heal him. We really believed that God would, but he didn't. And our friend died. But our faith wasn't shattered because our faith was in God and his will and his promise. And God never made a promise in the Bible that our friend Lee would live. There's no promise that says that. Now, we prayed to that end. But when we pray, we always end our prayers with, but God, I want your will be done. See, my faith is in a God who sees things I don't see. And most of the time, I don't even understand. But I trust him. I know him and I trust him, and my faith is in him to do what needs to be done. We prayed for Cheyenne, our daughter, to get a specific job. We were convinced, we had faith. Oh, Lord, I have faith to believe she's going to get this job. But she didn't. And our faith wasn't shattered because our faith was not in anything but God and what he wanted for our daughter. See, we know that nowhere in the Bible God has ever given a specific job for Cheyenne. It doesn't work that way. See, I have faith that God will do what he needs to be done in this world, in our life and in our daughter's life. See, faith is all about this. Faith is all about surrender. When you and I decide to follow Jesus, that's what it means. He leads, I follow. I surrender my will to him. And my faith is not in what he's going to do for me. My faith is in, God, I'm just trusting you that you're going to lead me and guide me. And we're not hearing very much of that today. We're hearing people say, well, if you come to Jesus and you then just have faith when you pray, and God is obligated to just do what you want. And nothing could be farther from the truth. Following Jesus is about getting on board with what he's doing in this world. And as a follower of Jesus, our faith isn't in a specific outcome the way we planned it out. We pray, but our faith is in God and his will. See, our faith is not, because I have faith, God has to do what I ask. Like, because I prayed and have faith that the Cardinals will win, then they have to win. Because I pray and have faith that I won't get hit by a car, then I won't. Because I have faith that I'll get pregnant next month, then I will. Like, do you see what I'm saying? We're placing all of these things on God to say, I'm having faith that you're going to do this particular outcome for me. But that's not really good biblical faith. Our faith isn't in a specific outcome the way we planned it out. So we've just come so far from the word faith. Faith in God says this, I will pray for that. I will pray for healing. I will pray for a job. I will pray for a check to come in the mail. But I'm trusting God. I'm trusting God that he will do what needs to be done. And the reason why is because that's what following Jesus is all about. My life is surrendered to him. And I think that's a missing piece in this whole faith thing. We are here to serve God any way he asks us to. Here's how we'll end. This is what I mean by attaching your faith to something that God has said. When our friend died from COVID, this is the promise that I rested my faith on. Romans 8:28, we know that God causes all things, even the death of our friend, to work together for good, to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. See, I have to attach my faith to something that God has already said, to God and his word. Faith is trust in an object, and our object is God. Hope that helps today. Have a really good day.